They laughed when I walked into the ballroom, and I felt it before I heard it. The laughter wasn't loud or obvious, it was the kind people think they can hide behind champagne glasses and polite smiles. The kind that slides under your skin because it's mixed with pity and superiority. My brother's merger party was everything he had dreamed of: crystal chandeliers, a string quartet, waiters gliding across marble floors like ghosts. His name was everywhere, projected in soft gold letters beside the logo of the company he had just merged with. Evan Hale, visionary, market disruptor, genius. And me, I was the afterthought, the younger sibling who never quite made it, the one people whispered about like an old rumor that refused to die. The cousin who didn't return calls. The sister who didn't work in finance, tech, or law. The one who showed up alone, in a simple black dress, no designer label, screaming for attention. I saw it in their eyes. Why is she here? Evan spotted me from across the room. His smile froze for half a second before snapping back into place. That was new. He hadn't expected me to come. He walked over, arms wide, voice loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "You made it," he said, like I'd surprised him by showing up to my own family event. I didn't think, "Well, it's good to see you." Translation: I didn't think you belonged here. "Congratulations," I said, hugging him lightly. "Big night." He nodded, already distracted, already scanning the room for someone more important. "You know how it is. Investors, board members, press. It's a lot." I smiled. "I can imagine." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "So what are you doing these days?" There it was. The question. The hook. The moment people waited for so they could decide exactly how much respect to give you. "I'm consulting," I said simply. He raised an eyebrow. "Consulting? For who?" I shrugged. "Various clients." He chuckled, a soft, patronizing sound. "Still keeping things mysterious, huh?" He patted my shoulder like I was a child who hadn't figured life out yet. "Well, enjoy the party. Drinks are on the left. Food's on the right." And just like that, he was gone. I drifted through the room, hearing fragments of conversation trail behind me. "That's his sister. I thought she moved away after college. Didn't she try to start some business that failed? I heard she works freelance or something." Freelance or something. I took a glass of champagne and stood near the edge of the room, watching. This was Evan's world now. People laughed too loudly at his jokes. Executives leaned in when he spoke. Journalists scribbled notes like every word he said might change the future. And my parents, our parents, floated nearby, glowing with pride. My mother wiped imaginary tears from her eyes every few minutes. My father shook hands like a man who believed his legacy was finally secure. I remembered when Evan was 16 and broke my laptop because he was angry I wouldn't let him use it. I remembered when he blamed me for a mistake he made in college, and my parents believed him without question. I remembered the countless dinners where my achievements were nice, and his were impressive. Tonight was the culmination of all of that. And they had no idea what I was really doing. A man in a navy suit approached me, his smile practiced, his eyes sharp. "You must be family." "Unfortunately," I said lightly. He laughed. "I'm Daniel Price, one of the early investors." I shook his hand. "I know who you are." That surprised him. "Oh, I read a lot," I said. He studied me for a moment. "And what do you do?" There it was again. "I advise firms during mergers and acquisitions," I said. He tilted his head. "Interesting. Which firms?" I met his gaze. "Mostly ones that don't want their mistakes broadcast at cocktail parties." For the first time that night, someone didn't laugh at me. He smiled slowly, thoughtfully. "Touché." He glanced toward Evan, who was holding court near the stage. "You must be proud." "I'm observant," I said. Daniel's smile widened. "Careful. That's more dangerous." He moved on, but not before giving me a look that said he would remember this conversation. I sipped my drink and let the music wash over me. The string quartet transitioned into something livelier, and the lights dimmed slightly as a hush spread across the room. Evan stepped onto the small stage, microphone in hand. He launched into a speech about vision and resilience, about how this merger would reshape the industry. People applauded at all the right moments. Cameras flashed. My mother clasped my father's arm, tears finally spilling over. I clapped too, slowly, quietly. As Evan spoke, my phone vibrated in my clutch. Once, twice. I didn't look. Not yet. He thanked the investors, the board, the legal teams. He thanked our parents. He didn't mention me. That wasn't surprising. And finally, he said, smiling wide, "I want to thank everyone here tonight for believing in this dream." The applause thundered. My phone vibrated again. I excused myself and stepped into a quiet hallway lined with abstract art. The music dulled behind the heavy doors. I checked my phone. 3 messages. All from the same contact. Ready. Documents uploaded. Proceed when you want. I exhaled slowly. This was it. I thought back to the moment everything changed for me. Years ago, when I realized being underestimated was the greatest advantage anyone could ever give you. When I stopped trying to explain myself. When I stopped correcting people who thought I was less than them. I typed a single word in response. Proceed. I slipped the phone back into my clutch and returned to the ballroom just as the party resumed its full volume. Evan was being congratulated left and right. My mother saw me and waved me over, her smile strained. Isn't this amazing? She said. Your brother has worked so hard. He has, I said. My father nodded. You should be proud of him. I am, I replied. And it was true, just not in the way they thought. A group of Evan's friends, old classmates, mostly, gathered nearby. One of them, a man with too much confidence and too little awareness, looked me up and down. So, he said loudly, what do you think of all this? All of what? I asked. He gestured around. The success. The money. The real world. A few people snickered. Evan glanced over, irritation flickering across his face. I think, I said calmly, that it's impressive how quickly things can change. He laughed. Yeah, if you're lucky. Or prepared, I added. He rolled his eyes. Sure. Before Evan could step in, a notification chimed on several phones around us. One person frowned and looked down. Then another. Then another. The energy in the room shifted, subtle but undeniable. Conversations stalled. Smiles faltered. Evan's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at the screen, then frowned. He tapped again, harder this time, like the phone was lying to him. What's wrong? My mother asked. Nothing, Evan said quickly. Too quickly. But it wasn't nothing. I could see it in his face. The color draining. The tightness around his eyes. Another buzz. Another. A man near the bar cursed under his breath. That can't be right. Daniel Price reappeared at my side, his expression no longer casual. Did you know about this? He asked quietly. I met his gaze. About what? The filing, he said. The investigation. I took a slow sip of champagne. I read a lot, I repeated. The music kept playing, but the party was unraveling. Whispers spread like wildfire. Phones glowed in the dim light. Evan pushed through the crowd toward me, his smile gone, his voice low and sharp. What did you do? He hissed. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a strange sense of calm. Enjoying your party, I said. His jaw clenched. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing, I replied. Around us, the mocking smiles had vanished. People were watching us now, curiosity replacing amusement. My parents stood frozen, confusion etched into their faces. Evan leaned closer. You had no right, he whispered. I smiled softly. You always said I didn't belong in your world. His phone buzzed again. And now, I continued, you finally get to see mine. Evan stared at his phone like it might explode in his hand. Around us, the party kept pretending it was still a party, music playing, waiters moving, but the sound had dropped to a distant hum, like we were underwater and reality was pressing in from all sides. What is this? He demanded, his voice tight. Why are people saying there's an investigation? I tilted my head. People say lots of things. You know exactly what I mean, he snapped. My legal team didn't mention anything about filings. Daniel Price cleared his throat beside us. Evan, he said carefully, I just got an alert from my office. There's a preliminary inquiry into the merger disclosures. SEC level. My mother's face went pale. Inquiry, she repeated. What inquiry? Evan shot Daniel a look. This isn't the time. It is exactly the time, Daniel replied, his tone cool. Because if what I'm seeing is accurate, this isn't a minor compliance issue. I watched my parents as the word compliance hung in the air. They didn't fully understand it yet, but they understood the fear on Evan's face. The same face he used to make when he was a kid and got caught lying, right before he blamed someone else. My father turned to me. Do you know something about this? I met his eyes. I know a lot of things. Evan laughed sharply, too loudly. This is ridiculous. She's trying to make herself feel important. She's always resented. Stop, Daniel interrupted. This isn't about family drama. Evan's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, pacing toward the edge of the room. I could hear fragments of his conversation. No, that can't be right, we disclosed everything, run it again. The guests were no longer pretending. Small groups formed, whispering urgently. A journalist quietly slipped out, phone already at his ear. Another investor approached Daniel, speaking in hushed tones. My mother grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, nails digging into my skin. What is happening? She asked. Why does everyone look like this? I gently removed her hand. Because tonight isn't what they thought it was. What does that mean? She pressed. It means, I said evenly, that Evan built something on shaky ground, and now it's being tested. That's not true, she said automatically. Your brother would never, wouldn't he? I asked. Or did no one ever question him because it was easier not to? Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. Evan returned, his expression hard. We're leaving, he told our parents. Now, leaving, my father echoed. But the party. This party is over, Evan snapped. Anyone who needs to talk to me can schedule a meeting. He turned to me, lowering his voice. If you had a problem, you could have come to me. I did, I said calmly. Years ago. You laughed. That doesn't give you the right to sabotage my life. I smiled faintly. You're doing a fine job of that on your own. His eyes narrowed. What did you file? Nothing, I said. I don't file things. I analyze them. Daniel looked between us. You're telling me, he said slowly, that you already knew there were disclosure gaps. I knew there were patterns, I replied. Offshore shell timelines that didn't align. Valuations inflated just enough to look aggressive but not reckless. Deferred liabilities buried in footnotes no one reads. Daniel exhaled. Jesus. Evan stepped closer, fury barely contained. You think you're smarter than everyone here? No, I said. I think everyone here assumed I wasn't. Security quietly began guiding guests toward the exits, polite smiles stretched thin. The string quartet stopped playing. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stood there, stunned, as Evan's perfect night collapsed around him. Cameras were gone now. So were the congratulatory smiles. What remained was scrutiny. We moved to a smaller private room off the main hall. Evan paced like a caged animal. My father sat heavily in a chair. My mother stared at the carpet. This is a misunderstanding, Evan said, more to himself than anyone else. They'll clear it up. They might, I said. Or they might find what's already there. He spun toward me. Why do you hate me so much? I considered the question. I don't hate you. That's a lie. No, I said softly. Hate takes energy. I just stopped protecting you. My mother looked up sharply. Protecting him from what? From consequences, I answered. From questions no one wanted to ask. Evan laughed bitterly. You think you're some kind of hero. I think I'm finally honest. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He read the message, then looked at Evan with something close to regret. The inquiry is expanding, he said. They're requesting internal emails related to the merger negotiations. Evan's shoulders slumped, just slightly. That's confidential. Not anymore, Daniel said. Not if they believe there was intent to mislead. My father stood up. Intent, he repeated. Evan, what does he mean? Evan didn't answer. I filled the silence. It means that when warnings were raised internally, they were dismissed. That concerns were reframed as negativity. That risks were minimized to secure approval. My mother's voice trembled. Is that true? Evan looked away. The room felt smaller, heavier. This wasn't revenge in the way movies portrayed it. There was no shouting victory. No dramatic reveal. Just the slow, inevitable weight of truth pressing down. Daniel straightened his jacket. I need to speak with my partners, he said. I'll be in touch. As he left, Evan sank into a chair, his confidence finally cracking. He rubbed his face, hands shaking. This wasn't supposed to happen, he muttered. Everything was under control. I leaned against the wall. That's what people say right before it isn't. My parents looked at me like they were seeing me for the first time. Not as Evan's shadow, not as the disappointment, but as someone who knew things. Someone who had been watching all along. Why didn't you tell us? My father asked quietly. I tried, I said. You told me to stop being jealous. My mother swallowed hard. Evan glared at me. So what now? You get to watch me burn. I met his gaze. No, I get to walk away. He scoffed. You think this is over? For me, I said, it's been over for a long time. I picked up my clutch and headed for the door. As I reached it, Evan's voice cracked. You planned this. I paused, then spoke without turning around. No, I prepared for it. Behind me, the sound of sirens drifted faintly through the city night, not for Evan yet, not officially. But close enough to make him flinch. I stepped back into the cool air outside, the lights of the city stretching endlessly ahead. And for the first time, the mockery I'd carried for years finally fell silent. The news broke before sunrise. By the time I woke up, my phone was vibrating nonstop on the Nightstand. Messages, missed calls, notifications stacked on top of each other like a tidal wave that had been waiting for permission to crash. I didn't rush to check them. I already knew what they would say. Regulators open inquiry into Hale Tech merger. Investor confidence shaken after surprise filing. Questions raised over valuation and disclosure practices. Evan's face was everywhere, on business websites, on social media, frozen in photos taken just hours before everything unraveled. The same confident smile from the party now looked strained, almost hollow, in hindsight. I made coffee, sat by the window, watched the city wake up. This wasn't the first time I'd seen something collapse. It was just the first time I wasn't standing in the rubble. By noon, the calls from my parents started. I let the first few go to voicemail. Not out of cruelty, but because I knew what they needed wasn't something I could give them quickly. When I finally answered, my mother's voice sounded small. "Can we talk?" "We're talking," I said gently. "No," she whispered. "Can we really talk?" I agreed to meet them later that evening. In the meantime, the rest of the world kept moving. Evan's board released a carefully worded statement. His legal team insisted the inquiry was routine. Analysts disagreed. Investors didn't like uncertainty, and uncertainty was now the only thing attached to his name. Emails I'd sent months ago, quiet warnings, neutral questions, risk assessments, were being dug up and reread by people who had ignored them the first time. Patterns were emerging. Not criminal conclusions yet, but enough smoke to justify a deeper look. That was always how it worked. You didn't need to light the fire. You just had to stop pretending there wasn't one. When I arrived at my parents' house that night, the lights were on in every room. It felt strange. As a child, light meant safety. Tonight, it felt like interrogation. They were already seated at the dining table when I walked in. Evan wasn't there. He didn't want to come, my father said quietly. I assumed, I replied. My mother looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept since the party. Everything is falling apart, she said. People are calling. Reporters. Relatives. They're asking questions we can't answer. I took a seat across from them. You don't need to answer them. That's easy for you to say, my father snapped, then softened. I'm sorry. We don't understand how this happened. I folded my hands. It didn't happen overnight. My mother's eyes filled. Did you know it would go this far? I knew it could, I said. That's why I stayed quiet for so long. She shook her head. You could have warned us. I did, I said. You told me to stop causing problems. Silence settled over the table. My father stared at the wood grain like it might give him answers. We trusted him. I know, I said. You always did. My mother looked up sharply. And what about you? I met her gaze. You trusted the version of me that didn't threaten the story you wanted to believe. She flinched. That was the moment something broke, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Years of imbalance, of comparison, of choosing convenience over truth finally collapsed under its own weight. I'm sorry, she said. The words came out raw. We should have listened to you. I nodded. Yes, you should have. There was no anger in my voice. Just clarity. A week later, Evan called me. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But something told me this would be the last time. You happy now? He asked without greeting. I leaned back in my chair. Are you asking out of curiosity or habit? He scoffed. My company is under review. My accounts are frozen pending audit. People won't return my calls. That's what scrutiny feels like, I said. You destroyed everything I built. No, I replied. You built it. I just stopped pretending the cracks weren't there. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. They're saying charges could follow. If intent is proven, I said. Yes. He laughed weakly. You always wanted this. I closed my eyes. You still don't get it. Then explain it to me, he snapped. I wanted you to be honest, I said. With them. With yourself. You mocked me because it was easier than admitting you were afraid someone might look too closely. Silence. I never thought you'd be capable of this, he said finally. That was your mistake, I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. What do you want? He asked quietly. The question surprised me, not because he asked it, but because he still thought this was about taking something from him. I want you to face what's coming, I said. Without blaming me. He hung up without another word. In the months that followed, everything changed. Evan resigned, temporarily, then permanently. The merger was suspended pending investigation. Some partners distanced themselves. Others quietly settled and walked away. My parents stopped defending him in conversations. They stopped defending themselves too. As for me, I returned to my work. Quietly, steadily. New clients reached out, not because of the scandal, but because of how early my assessments had been dated. Because my name appeared in footnotes that suddenly mattered. Being invisible had taught me how to see everything. One evening, I attended another event. Smaller, less flashy, no chandeliers, no applause, just a room full of people who asked thoughtful questions and listened to the answers. Someone asked me how I'd learned to stay calm under pressure. I smiled. Practice. Later, as I walked home under the city lights, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Dinner soon. Just us. I typed back, soon. Not because everything was forgiven. Not because everything was fixed. But because for the first time, the relationship would be built on truth instead of illusion. At my brother's merger party, they mocked me. They had no idea that while they were celebrating what they thought was the peak, I was quietly preparing for the moment gravity would return. And when it did, I didn't need to push. I just stepped aside and let the truth do what it always does in the end.